Welcome, Parklands Church. I think this is live and you can see at home. If you know me, send me a quick WhatsApp just to say hello. It would be great to see you. My name's Matt and this is Mark. Mark, you want to say hello?
Hello, yeah, I'm Mark.
So we're both good friends, both part of the leadership here in Parklands, and we're just going to give it a go tonight, aren't we, mate? Just to see what happens.
It's all a bit strange for us.
It's really strange. Like, we've been talking about this for quite a while and just trying to work out the best way of doing it. There's the amazing team again making all the technology work, and hopefully this is all sort of seeing it come into your homes. And yeah, it's really nice to be live, like talking as we speak. So we're really interested to get comments through the night, aren't we? Just to sort of see.
We are. I've got to say that when we started this, Matt said we were doing a podcast, and I just thought that's audio only and that's recorded. And so incrementally it's changed into this. So hopefully you'll enjoy it along with us.
Yeah, and we'll get to see how we've turned out at the end of it. So thank you for the messages. It's really good to see them firing up. But we wanted to really just have a conversation about Sabbath, and I guess like maybe not the can of worms that we've unlocked as a church and we've started the journey on this morning, but also just a little bit, isn't it, about like what we've discovered in that and the art of it, the invitation of it, some questions, and later on we'd just love to get you to send some comments, and hopefully some of the questions will ping up in front of us. I think that's the gist
it's
of it.
something that we've both been challenged by, I think, isn't it? And so we've committed to supporting each other in this a bit of a journey with Sabbath. Yeah. And if there's anyone else like after this morning's talk or just generally after this evening who wants to join us in that journey, let us know. It'd be fun to do it together. Yeah, definitely.
And so I think our plan is we've been chatting, as I said, haven't we? Like we've got some notes and some thoughts, but I think particularly for me, well, I know this is what we've both been thinking about, we just wanted to get what people's opinion was. So like your opinion, and I know you'd been asking some people, and I had my own opinion of before we started this journey of Sabbath, didn't we?
Yeah, so I think there's a feeling, isn't it? I think Christians generally these days don't hold too much to Sabbath. I guess it's thought of it's what the Jewish people did. It's an Old Testament commandment and this sort of thing. So I thought I'd do a little random sample of our church, only 10 people. But 9 out of those 10 basically said something along these lines. They like the idea of it in principle, but they don't actively practice something they might call a Sabbath rest. Maybe Sundays might look a bit different. They go to church, for example, but nothing else intentional for the rest of the day. So whatever they need to get on with or whatever. And others sort of said, yeah, my family used to do it a little bit when I was young, but not so much anymore. Yeah. So yeah, maybe at best a good principle.
Yeah. I think like it's a little bit of my experience as well, in the sense of brought up in that family, like Sunday was church day, and it's like we would do that, and in my mind, sort of like that's as far as maybe I went for Sabbath. Sort of knew about the rest principle. I guess, like I can remember, I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing, I can remember shops starting to open on Sundays.
Yeah,
can you remember that? Just checking. Vaguely. I'm just testing. Like, similar age, mate, come on.
Same age.
Yeah. But like, so I can remember that sort of principle, but also in my mind, I've got like this 1950s Sunday best, like prim and proper, like I won't go and buy milk, and like it was just this sort of thing in my head, which I disconnected from. But I don't know about you.
Yeah, like a negative image around Sabbath, like it's only about the things you really can't do, and those things are often things that are quite, you can't do anything fun, for example, or that sort of thing. So I think, and that's probably one of the reasons why we're mostly disengaged with it, aren't we, as a Christian culture these days. For me, grew up, I think my parents made a bit of a thing of it, limit some activities, but nothing particularly strong or religious on that. And as I grew older, I think I just, life gets in the way. You do other things. You haven't got that many days, you think. So this is where it's come around, I think, really real challenge. Maybe I think it's it's talking about rest is going to be an attractive thing for the likes of you and I. I think we're both quite go people, and there's probably a lot of people listening to this that can emphasise with that. Always, what's the next thing to get done? It's always to-do list. How can we be most efficient with our time? Yeah. And so this is a kind of kick back against that, I suppose, generally in terms of slowing down. But I think for me, the Sabbath is probably the most practical way that I can sort of introduce that for myself and my family. So
yeah, and I think it's a similar one for me, really, in the sense of, like, as you say, like, life is so full on, like, life is go, and then it's like that, I guess it's that question of, well, how do I break that like momentum? And, like, I think, well,
that's key.
Yeah, it's key. And I think one of the things, if I have to be really honest, and I'm being honest and live, but when I was ill last year, like, I had this crazy migraine. I've never had a crazy migraine like it before. But I was lying in a stroke ward in hospital at the age of, like, 30, well, I was 36 at the time. And I just remember going, this isn't right. Like, this shouldn't be right. Like, how have I got here? What is all this about? And there's no blame culture in that, but, like, I can certainly recognize, like, sometimes it's just easy just to go, and to not rest, so physically, and I've done a lot of exploring around that, and that sort of, like, mind rest and all that sort of jazz, but also, most importantly, like, am I resting to hear God's voice? Am I resting to really find that rhythm? And I think it's a daily thing, and I like what Hannah said this morning. It's like, it's a lifestyle. Sabbath is a lifestyle. Sabbath is in Jesus, abiding in him. But it's like, at minimum, should it be a day? I guess there's a question which we've raised. Like, and I actually think that's a good thing to sort of just put on the table.
Yeah, whether it needs to be a whole day.
Yeah.
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 It sounds like quite a challenge, doesn't it? I think, and I think we've got to recognise that we're all at different places with how our weeks are panning out. So, I mean, there's a brilliant guy, Tunde, in our small group, in our circle, and he is a doctor, works long hours in the hospital, and he is bringing up 2 children on his own. Wow. And I'd love to ask him, I didn't get to chat to him about it, but I'd love to ask him, what does Sabbath look like for him? Yeah. And so that's very different for someone else, Sue Williams, for example, who would be, she's got more time that she can choose what to do with. And she'll say she's very busy, and she is. But so there's just different things there in terms of where we're all at, isn't it? Yeah. And I think when we approach this sort of conversation about slowing down or about Sabbath, it's important to recognise where we're at and just see whether there's any nudgings to work on that, so that we go through the practices now about what it's about. But the whole idea of whether it's 24 hours, I think that's an interesting one we can come back to. Yeah,
definitely. So, like, I think Han did a great job of just really bringing some of these thoughts alive this morning, and thank you, Han, for doing that, and I hope you've had a chance to sort of catch it. But we've got, again, just some of the summaries and a few other things that have jumped out about, like, what is Sabbath rest. So I don't, like, you've sent me some notes here of, like, your thoughts and, like, some of the words and the meaning behind it.
Yeah, so Sabbath is Shabbat in Hebrew, and that means to cease or to stop. And so that's the heart of it, I think. And so what are we stopping? That's important for us to recognise. And I've heard it described like this, with the 3 W's. So stopping work, which is, I guess, a more obvious one. And maybe that's what a lot of us do practice, 1 day a week to stop work, hopefully at least. And work can obviously be beyond just our paid work.
Yeah, it certainly is.
So, yeah.
There's got to do something in the garden. I've got to do this job in the house.
And the garden one I thought is an interesting one, because that's, for some, that could be rest. Yeah. For me, it often isn't. So it feels like that's something on my to-do list that I need to get done. So stopping work, stopping worry, which I guess is the worry of work often. It's like, but I need to get this done, or I'm concerned about this, and that sort of thing. So stopping worry, easier said than done. But when we think about the activities that we partake in that day, and why we do it, stopping worry is helpful as well. And stopping want as well. So that's an interesting one in terms of what we strive for and what we look for, or the practical in terms of wanting to buy something. And again, I don't think you and I are going to sit here and say, like, I've been struck down and I don't think we should ever buy anything on the Sabbath. and that some people might feel like that, and that's great, and I really admire that kind of commitment. But there's something about stopping the desire, isn't it, for something else, for wanting more or wanting something else. So they're the 3 W's: work, worry, and want. So it's a discipline, a spiritual discipline of abstinence. So in terms of not doing something is the foremost part of it: to cease, to stop, work, want, worry, and want. But also, would you say it's also of substance? So of gaining something from abiding in the vine, isn't it? So refueling, these are different words that have come up when we discuss it in our circle. Refueling, refreshing, reframing, I think is important as well. So reframing our mindset, isn't it?
And I think that's it. One of the other words, I'm terrible at pronouncing these things, but it's a word called nuka, which means to dwell. And I love that. It's like the Sabbath invitation. And again, like we'll bring the context of Jesus and everything in a minute, but like this principle of like stopping and resting and dwelling in God. And like for me, that's key, because it's that invitation to really hear God, to really find the rhythm, to really like just understand what it is to abide in Him. And I think like, and again, we're not coming from a legalistic perspective, but because life is so go, 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 I think sometimes it's just, as you say, it's easy to like, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to go and get that sorted, or I start thinking about this, or these things, like, these things are like the constant, I want that lifestyle, I want this, I want that, and like, I forget then that principle of just looking to Him. And I think for me, that's what it is. Like, there's this quote, which I read from, I think it was like the Bible Project or something. Sabbath Rest is an invitation to practice for eternity. It's where we regularly, intentionally engage in God's rule and reign in our hearts and on earth. We have to Shabbat in order to nuka, to stop working and truly rest in God's presence. When we practice this intentional stop, we make room for Him to take up residence in our individual lives. It's a challenge, isn't it? When we do this together, we're making space for it in our communities. Even better, we're taking part in this new creation story. That's really powerful. Setting the stage for God to make His dwelling place and His resting place right here in our hearts. And I think that's, for me, I think that's why I'm excited to explore this invitation, is like, I want to make space for God, not just go, I'll squeeze Him in where I can. And like, I don't know, like, this is the controversial bits, because it's a lifestyle, but I think culture has almost, it's easy for us to not live the lifestyle, or like, does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot that, our culture is basically go, 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 isn't it? So I liked what you said earlier about the momentum, stopping the momentum. I think it's important to stop that momentum to then see what can be filled in that gap. The other thing we should remember is that the Sabbath, observing the Sabbath is one of the 10 Commandments. So I wanted to not go long without mentioning that, because there's not many of those. I think most of us as Christians would not disagree with practicing the other 9. So like, not murdering, not stealing, not wanting each other's wives or donkeys. So I think even though that's some people might fly back in that and say, well, these are things that are given in the Old Testament, and Jesus came to fulfill and to refresh some, and to redefine in some ways the law. But I guess we'll come on to that, won't we, about Jesus, how He came to bring that heart out of it.
Completely. And as you say, like, the other thing for me as well, it's like, it's there in the creation, and it's like, I love what was brought this morning, like in the creation story, like God blesses 3 things: animals, so they will produce; humans, so they will produce; and the rest day. And it's like, there's just, for me again, it's like it's woven into the rhythm of life, this week thing, and this structure, which I think is really, really helpful. And like, well, I think we all, I don't know if people, I remember reading, I think you've mentioned this as well, like, was it when the French tried to go to a 10-day week, they completely destroyed society, and it went to pot.
Following the French Revolution, They tried the 10 days, and I also read the Soviets tried a 5-day week.
Yeah.
And that didn't work out either. So they did it both those situations because they thought they'd get more productivity. They'd be more efficient as a nation. They could open factories for longer, these sort of things. And a few years later, they had to abandon it because mental health issues went up, all sorts of things went wrong, and they weren't more efficient. So, there's something there, isn't there, about the 7 days?
Yeah.
Obviously, God blessed that seventh day, and he took pleasure in it. And so whether we take it as a literal or more of a poetic, if you like, or somewhere between that, the creation story, it still teaches us and gives us insight, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I like what you said about rhythm. I think I like to think about, well, a couple of things. I've heard this thing about the trellis. So one of these, Sabbath is a spiritual discipline, a spiritual habit, or a formation, something that is forming us to be more in tune with God, and so that's sometimes unpopular, isn't it, to talk about disciplines, but that fits really in needing a structure. If you think about the vine and the fact that Jesus said, "I am the vine, you are the branches." Yeah. So to have a vine, you need to have a trellis, something that holds that up and stops it from falling to the floor, being eaten by the birds or whatever, and sort of being trampled on. And so that structure for the vine allows it to grow and allows the branches to bear fruit. Yeah. And so I'd like to think about the Sabbath and some of the other spiritual formations as being that structure. And so even though it's unpopular these days for us to have things that kind of constrain us and tell us to do things, I think we need to be recognizing as Christians, this is my view, that we need certain bits of structure, and obviously the Bible lays out a lot of those things, but I think Sabbath is key in that. Is a rhythm, like you said, in which to pause, and I think that 7 days is the way that God ordained it, and therefore it kind of set into pattern, like almost like a tapestry, like wove it in. This is the way, like an instruction manual, if you like, for life. Every 7 days you need to recharge your batteries. You had that for different things. You were coming up with some good examples, weren't you, of other things that need to have rest.
Everything, isn't it? It's like I don't think there's only one thing that you thought didn't rest much, but our bodies need to rest. Like we need to sleep, and there's loads of science about the concept of sleep. Like I don't know if you know, but Roger Federer, tennis player, sleeps on average about 14 hours a day.
14 hours?
Yeah. Complete contrast to Elon Musk.
And he probably practices tennis about 10 hours. So.
Yeah, but sleep's really important for him to recover. Phone batteries, we all know how the stress of getting through the day, will I make it to the end of the day before I need to plug it in, recharge, cars, fuel, it's only one thing that sort of bucked the train on that, wasn't it? Was it?
So our body has different states, doesn't it? It goes from a rest state to an active state, fight, flight, all this sort of stuff. I was thinking about our feet. Our feet needs to rest. That's why we sit. Yeah. And our bum needs to rest. That's why we stand up and walk. Nature goes through its cycles, doesn't it? We have the seasons. A car needs refueling. Even the things we make, a mobile phone, like you said. And I was moving on to think about birds as well, but the swift kills it. Yeah. The swift kills our analogy there, because the swift does everything on the wing pretty much. It can spend how long?
You said something like 10 months without landing. That's just absolutely great. If I tried to go 10 months without stopping and trying to do everything on the go, I think it'd be a train wreck. But
apparently it eats, drinks, sleeps, and mates on the wing. So that's impressive. So unless you're swift, we all need a rest. And I just think there's something fundamental there about how God has set things into pattern. I guess that's what we're saying, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's pattern, not legalism, and it's the invitation to find a free life, and that's what, for me, Jesus was. That's what it's all about. It comes back to the freedom we can find from having a free life in Him. Jesus came to sort of smash the old way and say, look, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. And he was. I love the sort of, when you really delve into the Matthew 11 and 12, and from what I've managed to gain about he's saying to people come away from that legalistic law and the law of being yoked into the Torah, for example, or something, and saying, come away from that, yoking with me. I'm offering much more life, life in all its fullness.
Yeah, freedom.
Yeah, and And for me, it's that journey of discovering, well, how do we really go like into a real deep relationship with him? And I think the tapestry, as you say, of what's through the Old Testament into the New Testament is this invitation of, well, that makes sense. And it makes sense in my mind in society to say, let's just stop. Let's just stop and rest. Because like, I remember chatting to a friend before we opened Square Peg, and it was this, like, do we open Sunday? Sundays are a busy brunch day. Everyone wants to go for brunch, da 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 da. And like, all that this guy said, and didn't go to church or anything, and was like, it's really important for a business to rest. He'd worked in like shit kitchens all his life, 20 plus years, high end, low end. He said, when I've done it like 7 days a week, everyone burns out. He said, when I've worked in places that stop, like the momentum keeps going and it keeps refueling. And I found that in the sense of, yeah, it's helpful that we're closed on a Sunday so we can, as a family, come to church. Others can have stuff. But everyone who works there goes, it's just great because we just stop. Yeah. Like, it's not like they're not going to church and like really like looking to him, but they're finding that place to stop and like delight with their partner, delight with their family, with their little kid, and go, I've got time every Sunday. You've got my attention. Yeah. And it's almost like, I guess, us with our Father relationship. Every week, I'm going to give my attention all I can, Father, and I want to live in Sabbath, but like I'm going to make a special effort in a different way on a Sunday and delight in him.
I love that, delighting. Those three things that we're replacing it with is resting, delighting, and worship, isn't it? Yeah. Another analogy, if you like, is music. To think about this whole rhythm thing, isn't it? So music has a beat, and if you're going to play along or dance along with it, it makes so much sense. It's natural, and to do so along with the beat. If you try and break the beat, do something differently, then it just doesn't work. Yeah. And so I think that's something like God set the music into playing, and we are to dance along to that beat. And if we don't, it's a bit like that structure. Jesus came to give that freedom, but there's this freedom within that structure. If there's no structure, that freedom can't, the vine can't blossom, can it? It can't come to fruit. So yeah.
And like that's the bit, isn't it, about Jesus coming, and he breaks that. It's not about like laws and legalism. It's an invitation for him, and he's saying like, come to me and find rest in me. I'm the true Sabbath. And like that journey of like from Eden through Jesus to like the end times, it's like he's saying, look, this is where you find that rest now. And I think, and that's amazing. And there's lots of stories, isn't there, about him going, like, well, he broke it in the Jewish rules when he healed someone, when he loved someone. But he's saying, look, I'm bringing this life where you can love people. I don't want to see healing happen. And I want to see this happen. I want to pour it out.
So good. So, I mean, would we say Jesus observed the Sabbath?
Well, from what I understand, like he observes it, like, and this is the maybe the more like trickier bit. And again, like I'm on a journey with this, and like you, like Jesus is the ultimate Sabbath. Jesus is the ultimate rest. So he's saying, in one sense, you don't need it, because if you live in me, all out everything, you technically don't need it. And I think
that's what the kickback would be. I think a lot of Christians would say, well, I live my life with Jesus, and I've got him in me, and I don't need to abide by this structure.
Yeah, and like that's, I guess, you got the flip of it. Like you've got Paul, who's like had this massive Damascus Road revelation, like I'm sold out for God, I'm going all out. And like Paul, for me, in the New Testament, is like all out. And in Romans 14, he's talking about the frictions with the Jews and Gentiles, and what they eat and what they do. And I think what it is, for the kingdom of God is not a matter of eating and drinking, but of righteousness, peace and joy in the Holy Spirit. And just before that, whoever regards one day as special does so to the Lord. Whoever eats meat to the Lord. And it's just like this concept, it's like you might do this, you might do that. But I don't know if Paul fully followed the Sabbath, but I know Paul was like sold out on God, like all out, like everything, every moment, every day. And for one sense, that's like the ultimate. That's what he's saying. Like, if you live in every moment of every day with me, you're in ultimate rest. Brilliant. Like, that's where I want to be. But I don't want to be honest and go, it's too easy to forget that with with this, with that, with the jobs around the house. And then I don't find that rest to sort of delight in God, delight with my family, delight in who I am, restore my mind. So it's this, in one way the theory can be, I live in it, great, but I know from experience it's easy to forget. And it's easy to forget others in that, because for me, and this is maybe where we're different, my my church communities, I delight in, I love it. And
You're saying I don't?
I didn't say that. But I want to carve out time to just delight in those relationships. Yeah. And to have those conversations and to spark on one another and to encourage one another to delve deeper into the word, or challenge one another to how are we looking out, how are we blessing. I think Rob sent us a message and again we're going off topic because it's nearly 8 o'clock, but how do we give rather than receive the blessing of Sabbath to our society? And I think for me, it's that, and I don't know if this is the answer, but when I'm coming into relationship with God, I'm sparking it off you, I'm getting fired up about it. I'm in that place to give it out because I just want to give it out. I want to be generous. I want to be loving. I want to be outrageous. But sometimes you just need to receive. Yeah. And delight and dwell to give it out. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if that answers you, Rob, but...
Yeah, I think a connection with each other can be a massive part of Sabbath, right? What we normally do is church and for years and years and years, Christians and Jews have done that sort of thing on that special day, is to connect with each other and connect with God in the same sort of breath, if you like. And I think there's something special about that, isn't it? So I completely understand that that's a big part of stopping and ceases, as long as it's not work, worry and want. Communing with others is great. I think there's also just some of us that recognize that we also need times where we are, and maybe it's a bit more introverted thing, I don't know, but we just need to kind of take a kind of a pace off things, and sometimes by not being around others for a period of time in that day, I think it can be important as well. But I mean, I really want Sabbath to be a day of delight with my family. I just think that's something that's so great to be part of it. I want it to be the best day of the week. I think there's something about a retreat. I think that every week we should treat ourselves. I think it's also a holiday. It's a holy day. Holy day. It is a holy day, and which is where the word holiday comes from. Yeah. And sometimes thinking of it in terms of a holiday can be quite helpful. So like a mini Christmas each week, if you like.
Imagine that, Christmas every Sunday. Christmas Day every Sunday.
Without all the stress and the obligations and whatever else. But literally you kind of pack up all, I think Hannah mentioned this morning, you stack up all the fun things for the week and throw them into Sunday, make it enjoyable, pleasurable, and restful. Yeah, I think there's a lot in that, and doing it with other people is so important, isn't it? Anything like that, going to the gym, it's helpful to do with other people. So I mean, Oscar in my household is the guy who likes the order, and so if I stray away from something we say we're going to do as a family or whatever, he'll be the first to tell me, "Hey, Dad, this is whatever," and I can see it already. Next few weeks, he's going to be like, "Dad, this is Sabbath."
Yeah,
we should be doing that.
And I guess that's the journey we're on, because in one sense we're not doing this to go, we've got all the answers, we've smashed it, but I think we're both said, isn't it? We're on a journey of discovery of what does that mean? And I just think it's an interesting thing to explore. The minimum, say the lifestyle thing is the goal, and that's where my heart is, to be fully in Him all the time. But if I can carve out more and more things in my life that help me abide in Him, and help my family, because I've got a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and me and Claire, so we've got a family unit. How do they easily see it? Because the morning routines are go, mummy's off to work, daddy's off to work, daddy's got to do this, daddy's got to do that, school, etc. And for them, that's why I want to do it, for them to go, girls, this is about saying thanks to God for everything He's done. Yeah. To delight, and I think some people put candles up, or I don't know, we haven't got that far yet. And there's all those things, but it's just to unlock that conversation and unlock the journey of how we can do it.
Yeah, I know we're going to open it out to questions in a second.
Please do ping them in. If I can't pick them on YouTube, if you know us, WhatsApp me. If not, someone will grab them off YouTube and send them through. So
hopefully, I mean, this is just a conversation we wanted to have. Hopefully, we at least just trigger in some thoughts. Do challenge us if we said something that doesn't sound right, and like really keen just to enter into this bit of a conversation. I guess maybe before we do that, I wonder if we could just bring it back to Jesus. And I think it's important to recognise that he did retreat to hear God's voice.
Yeah.
And then in doing so, he put it into action, didn't he? So that was a common thing that Jesus did all the time: go into the Erasmus, the quiet place. And he did observe the Sabbath. I guess he didn't in the way that the Jewish law at the time understood it. That's the key thing, isn't it? So that's what the Sabbath was understood to be. And now Jesus brought about a kind of a new understanding of the Sabbath to be this delighting in the Father. I love what Hannah pulled out this morning, that Jesus said, "Sabbath is made for man, not man made for the Sabbath." And I just found that so interesting, so helpful, because it shows that whole thing about Jesus fulfilling the Sabbath, bringing it home. I like that phrase, bringing it home. So he kind of like, it makes it real in us, and bringing it home also. You know, you mentioned the ultimate Sabbath. I think there's something there about ushering in the ultimate Sabbath, as in Sabbath is a little bit of a glimpse, I think, of what the end times are like. In terms of the kingdom of heaven.
It's that connection, Eden through to kingdom.
Like I said,
it's the now and not yet.
So resting, delighting, and worshipping. That summarizes heaven, where we're going in the end. I think it's important for us to invest in who we're becoming, not just what we're doing. I think that's another way of thinking about this, isn't it? We spend a lot of time doing more things, rather than investing in who we're becoming and who we're impacting. As we're doing that, and concentrating on where we're going, I guess, isn't it?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's like, you don't go, like, if you've ever done orienteering, you've always got to go back to your map and your compass. Otherwise you just end up, and I think for me that's the image I have. And I know you had like an image of an anchor, but like that image of just like recenter. And I want to do that. I want to do that in my mornings, but that's not always easy. I want to do that when I'm come home, but like sometimes my mind is just fried. And like, I want to have that more and more and more. But I think I quite like the principle of just going like, there's something, for me, there's something in it. It's ingrained in creation. It's ingrained in the commandments. It was like, Jesus talks about it, is the ultimate Sabbath, but there's just something in it for me to go, it just feels like there's more, and like to delight and to enjoy and to worship and to just look away from me and my circumstances, and just look to him. And I think center God into our heart, and like, just a day to do that. And it's not just about singing some songs, but like for me, coming to church is key in that, because it sets the rhythm. It sets the rhythm for my girls, and like also like then to give the rest of the day and say, girls, this is about him. Like, how can we see him in creation? Like today, we were picking mussels off off Worm's Head, and then like before I came here, we were like scraping all the barnacles off. But it was like that for me was delighting and just showing them creation and enjoyment and saying, God created this. Like we thank him, and we'll eat them tomorrow night because we couldn't get to eat them tonight. But so we've split it up. But like we'll delight and go like that's the full circle. So
it's harder, isn't it? We can't go a whole podcast without mentioning COVID, and I suppose that rhythm has just been broken so much recently. Like lockdown, and just like Mondays and Sundays felt the same a lot of the time, that sort of thing. And so my circle group teased me when I said that I am ferociously protecting Sunday mornings. I know that if I say that I'm going to view this Sunday morning talk later or try and engage in that way, it's not going to happen. So I think there's something about that actively needing to claim that time. And that's where, we could talk on, couldn't we?
We can go on for like, because if people are shift workers, like, how do you do that differently, and etc. But just to like bring it in, because we've been going on for almost 30 minutes now, so I'm not sure what it's like at home.
Is anyone listening to us?
And like now we're starting to like, the challenge is Top Gear started 7 minutes ago, so there may be a conflict of interest going on in your household. But Tilly has rated like, can you experience Sabbath every day? Got Mark to answer that? I think it's a great question.
Yeah, brilliant. That's great. That's great. I think for me, my understanding around that helped when I heard this analogy about an anchor. So I think it's important. I think it takes time for us to really get into that place. I think really stopping is not as easy as it sounds. Quieting that noise is not that easy. Yes, we can sort of like have a period of time, like half hour, an hour with God every day, and we can inquire at that. But with the anchor, so an anchor is obviously there to bed into the bedrock of the sea, and to stop the ship from being affected by the wind and the current. And so I think that's important, isn't it? We can recognize the things that are wind and current in our culture. But the thing is that the anchor takes some time, doesn't it, to get to the bottom of the sea. There's no point just throwing the anchor over the side or whatever happens and dipping it in the water and then bringing that anchor back up. So that there's something about it needing to really get deep into that bedrock and spend some time abiding. I'm mixing my metaphors, but I think there's something there that makes me understand that it needs to really get down deep, and it takes time. There's that element to it, and there's also just how it works out in reality, right?
Yeah, I think that's the thing, because like for me, like Tilly's asked the question, is like we can have Sabbath in every day when we live every moment with Jesus, and we find that freedom, and we find the ultimate Sabbath, and it's like that, and we love him with all our heart. We love others, and we have like the God mind on all the time. And like for me, like that's the freedom, and that's the place we can live in, and that's brilliant. And I think, in one sense, when you've thrown yourself in with God, that's the invitation. Like that's the Sabbath, saying have it every day. And so, in one sense, I think it's happening, and yes, when we have a relationship with Jesus, because that's what it was for me. But I think the other one, as you say, it's easy to not forget God, but it's easy to get distracted. So then, like, yeah, I don't know if hopefully that answers. We had another question from Helen. I'm sorry if I don't get this right. Any thoughts on Sabbath keeping increasing our creativity when we do so? Any thoughts on that?
Wow.
I've got to understand.
Wow. So while we think about that, I think we need to have a nod to like how our habits work, don't we? And I think we desire for something more as we practice it. And so doing something to start with, it can be quite difficult. Like you don't plan to run a marathon, you don't just go out and run a marathon. You practice and practice, you do little bits at a time, and then you do more. And so there's something about working towards, about an intention and a desire that comes from doing it. I think some people even love running, for example, crazy people. And so there's a desire that comes out of it. And I think if you're a creative person, I think that's a massive part of that. So like God is a creative God. Look at his creation. So like, and he blessed you with that gift. And so if you're in a resting place with him, he's gonna be bringing out those gifts in you, I think. Would you say?
Yeah, like completely. I think it's that stopping to let your mind create, to stopping to hear God's voice in that creation.
Yeah.
And like, I know for me, for example, and like Bri would know this from working with me so long, I don't work well with noise. So like, if I'm go, I can't hear God's voice, and I can't get the creativity of like, well, where's the next thing we should be going, or what's God saying in this circumstance? I need to retreat to hear God's voice. Like I just can't go noise. So I think the creativity unlocking, I think it's key, because we're given time to just hear, isn't it? It's like and to stop.
One way to think about Sabbath is reducing your external effects on you. That's where you could talk about the phone and that sort of thing, or just like anything that could be a negative, or just pulling you in different directions, isn't it? So that you can concentrate on God's voice and to connect with those close to you. And in doing so, I think I love that idea of creativity coming out. I think it's kind of central to it, to be honest. It's like God speaks to you. That is creation, creativity. Should I say.
Dan's mentioned a question. The principle of Sabbath being like lost in our society could be the key to like other breakdowns within society, from life issues and whatnot. And I think, like, particularly from my own experience of like my mind, I realised how much I need to rest it. Yeah. And like I need to rest it on a daily basis. I need to there's a whole certain capacity in different emotional, physical, mental capacity. But like the more I'm slowing this down, the more I'm recovering. And I think like for me that's a really interesting thing to put into society. And like I think Hannah mentioned this morning, I think one of the most popular TED Talks is the principle of finding like a rest.
In praise of slowness.
Yeah. Praise of slowness.
It's really worth a watch. And it really fits with what the Bible says about Sabbath as well. My sister is an OT, and she does some presentations on mental health. And she said to me that she feels like the abandonment of Sabbath has something to play in the health, in our general health these days. And so, I guess that's her surmising somewhat, but I think there's a lot of scientific evidence for the fact that we need to take that definite break in a period of time, which has turned out to be 7 days. Seems to be a pretty good time span. So there's a lot at stake, isn't there?
Yeah,
there's a lot at
stake.
There's
an awful lot out there, and this is a massive, like, this isn't can we preach about it and we'll have a little podcast. Like, this is a big discussion. As I said, it's a big theological thing, in the sense of like that journey of like creation all the way through to Revelation, and Jesus' key role in that. And hopefully we've unpacked that. Hopefully we've answered some of the questions that have come in through. There may be one coming through, I think, from Hannah. She's typing. But like, I hope this has helped. Like, as I said, we're on a journey, aren't we? Like, we're holding not accountable to each other, but we're exploring what it means in our own life, and like, we'll explore that and share that more. What do you read? Yeah. Sabbath Rest, the story of Mary and Martha. It's a really, like, bringing up the Mary and Martha question. That's a really good point, isn't it? The works and just washing his feet. There's always lots of work to do, and like, that had to be done, but Jesus just loved that heart of just delighting in him. Yeah. And I think service is a great way to be resting and delighting in God and worshipping. It's serving each other. It's getting the balance, and I think that's, for me, it's like the Mary and Martha balance, isn't it? Of like, I've got the jobs to do, and like, even like Claire and I are talking about this. It's like, I did a bit of Sabbath prep yesterday. I did 3 loads of washing, fully dried, all done, so we could enjoy today. Yeah, without prep, it's not going to happen, is it, basically? Yeah. That's just what we're like. We need to like properly push into it. Yeah, so. But there we go. Dan's given us a wave to say, I think we need to wrap it up. But it's been really fun. It's been really nice to be live and like interactive live. Yeah, and if you see me in B&Q on a Sunday, please don't judge me. Excellent. We're not being legalistic. It's the invitation to like really master that abiding in the vine. Like, and I think for us, we're enjoying the journey of like the formation of rhythms to really help us like be in him more. So like, yeah, I think that's everything. As I said, like, we're not trying to be legalistic. This is different for everyone. We're not saying we can't do, particularly Jesus says you can't, like, someone said to me, oh, you're picking food today. And I was like, well, I'm not working. So we're not being legalistic, but it's the invitation to abide in him more and more. So let's just pray, and hopefully then these words can just be guided by God and the Holy Spirit into all our hearts and our lives. Yeah, Lord, help us to understand how you designed us to live. Help us to press into your word, Lord. Help us to do things with good motives, Lord, to check our hearts on what we're doing, and not to share any judgment, Lord. But Lord, just continue to stir us, continue to do your work in us, and to just help us to learn more how to abide with you and to take our human steps to achieve that, Lord. Yeah, thank you for this evening, Lord. Yeah, Lord, and thank you for that invitation of like the ultimate rest, Lord, in you. And Lord, thank you that you came to do that for us. And you broke us away from a life of law and legalism, Lord, but you came to give us freedom, and your yoke is easy. And Lord, I pray you just help us delight in you more, Lord. We would live a life of worship, Lord, that we would abide in you every moment of every day, Lord, every thought that comes back, every time we're in work, Lord, that we're just worshipful. Our hearts and lives are worshipful, Lord. I just thank you that you're the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom, and help us, Lord, discover you more and more in however we do this, Lord Jesus. Amen. Cool. Amen. So please don't, as I said, be stressed out thinking, I think Heather's put a really great question out, which I'm not going to answer in the sense of fully, but like, it shouldn't be a stressful experience to have a Sabbath. It was just trying to probe some of those questions, explore some of those questions. But anything that helps us delight in him, worship and rest, I think is a great thing for life. So
And make it the best day of the week.
And make it the best day of the week, however you can. So back to wearing masks. That's the end of us now. And we appreciate you watching and tuning in, and catch you next time.
Bye-bye.